Smith. This is my third video Sunday morning. And I basically just want to talk about how to be authentic with a buyer, seller, tenant, landlord, and how to follow one of the greatest commandments, and that is to love one another. And what it means by loving one another is that you have to learn about one another. And in order to learn about one another, you've got to be selfless and authentic and raw, and you have to pour into other people. And so when I talk about, and if you've ever seen me talk about politics, I'm very political. I have all kinds of political history trivia in my mind. The first president I ever voted for was George Herbert Walker Bush. He ran against Michael Dukakis. Michael Dukakis went around in a big tank with a helmet on, and he looked like the cover of Mad Magazine. It tanked his candidacy. I voted for George Bush. I loved Ronald Reagan when the wall fell and East Berlin was freed and people began to travel. I used to work for Ann Richards in college. She's super liberal. It's there that I found out that government is inefficient and that they're not going to help me succeed. And the day that you think they are is the day that you've just basically surrendered to life. You're going to have to make your own successes and failures. And this country is all about the individual liberty, pursuit of happiness, and capitalism. And you're in a profession that's probably the most purest form of capitalism, because there ain't no floor and there ain't no ceiling. So what that means is that in order to create a floor and to have an unlimited ceiling, you've got to know and invest in what other people's stories are. No one cares about your story anymore as a realtor. If you're talking, you're losing. And the one that's listening is the one that's winning. So that means that you have to have a worldview outside of Collin County. And so what I do every morning as part of a belief system to learn as much about the world as possible, in case I meet any immigrant here in DFW that comes from a different part of the nation, a different part of the world, is I want to expand my worldview. In German, it's called your Weltanschauung. And Weltanschauung with a W means that it's a worldview. And my opinion would be that you want to make your worldview as large as possible to bring on as many buyers, sellers, tenants, and landlords when you can have some type of relationship with them where you can relate. So one of the aspects of doing that is that you have to absolutely know about politics. I like to share my screen here and go to a couple websites that I go to in the morning. And one of them is the Drudge Report. Now, the Drudge Report, the reason I like it is because it tells you the highlights of what's going on in the world. And if you scroll down, you can see that it's got a lot about the war in Ukraine. And then it's got little articles about what's going on in the world. And if you keep scrolling down, it's got a link to every newspaper in the world and every columnist. So you can go to the Jerusalem Times. You can go to the New York Times. You can go to the German newspapers. You can go to anything that's available on the internet is tied here. And you can go to any columnist that you ever want to read. Over here, it's got Reuters. It's got every single world publication, national publication. If you keep scrolling down, it's going to have things about the weather down here, weather apps, archives. It's got a reference desk down here at the bottom. I mean, you just got all kinds of things, okay? The Drudge Report became famous because he's the one that said that Monica Lewinsky had kept a blue dress of hers up in the closet in the corner that had some of Bill Clinton's DNA on it. And so that was he broke the story about Monica Lewinsky's blue dress. And again, if you don't know about that, Google it, Monica Lewinsky's blue dress. Learn about our history in our country. Learn about politics. And this is something that ties you to every type of politics, from left wing to right wing and everything in between. I also like to go to ESPN.com in the morning. And when I go to ESPN.com, I like to know who won in March Madness last night. I like to know who's playing today. I like to know if there was any big stories. And right over here, you're going to get the top headlines. So you don't have to be an expert, but what if you met somebody today that was a huge LeBron James fan? Well, you know that he's number 2 now on the all-scoring list. What if somebody was a Boston Red Sox fan? You find out that they got a free agent they paid $140 million to. So you just kind of get a ballpark of what's going on in the world. You're going to absolutely have to do this in order to know what's going on. I also think would be a good idea is to probably follow Fox News. We know that Fox News is for people that are probably a little more conservative, but that means that after you read this, you go to CNN.com and you find out what's going on at CNN so that you get two different views of what people are thinking. Maybe you also go to MSNBC.com, MSNBC.com, and you start reading about that. Because I can tell you that you're going to meet buyers that think that anything on Fox News is a lie, and you're going to meet buyers that thinks anything on CNN or MSNBC is a lie. Your job is not to tell them what you believe, but to concur with them while you're showing them homes, because people want to work with people that are most like them. You don't have to be like them after you get home and close your door, but it would be a good idea to know who Rachel Maddow is. Okay. And then it would also be a good idea when you go to Fox News to learn about who Sean Hannity is, so that you have two big personalities on each of those channels and you're able to have a conversation with people that might not view the world the way you do. And if you think that you're only going to work with people that voted for Bill Clinton or George Bush or voted for Donald Trump or Joe Biden, number one, I pray to God you know who each of those people represent, but you'd be surprised at how many realtors don't. And I would argue that it's good to know who both parties represent, what their philosophy is, who their standard bearers are, and you just get a good open worldview, because you're going to work with people that will work with you if you like Rachel Maddow, and you're going to work with people that don't want to work with you if you like her. And your job is to, when you're in the car, to have some flexibility in your belief system, have a bigger worldview, so that at the end of the day, they feel like they are working with somebody most like them, not physically, not color, not race or religion, not what God you worship, but that they're just like you, meaning they have an open mind or they have a closed mind. And, you know, as long as they don't say something that violates fair housing, people have a right to like Rachel Maddow, and people have a right to like Sean Hannity. And you should know enough about both to where you're not going to alienate somebody in your car because they love this house, they love you, until you told them you voted for Donald Trump or Joe Biden and they voted for the other person. So if you have a basic belief that in the end, you're the one that's going to make you successful or not, then really all the politics is just the art of persuasion. And every 4 years, all they do is regurgitate the same ideas. They just put a donkey behind them or elephant. And again, it'd probably be a good idea to know if a donkey was behind a candidate's name, if they were a Democrat or Republican. A lot of people don't. I shook hands with Van Taylor about 3 weeks ago in front of Carpenter Park as I went in to vote. And I tried to actually not shake his hand, but he friggin' came up to me. So I shook his hand, and I didn't vote for him. But if I did vote for him, at the end of the day, it came out that he had an affair on his wife. And here he is preaching that you should have a great fidelity to your spouse. And he's a hypocrite. And he bowed out of the election the next day. I don't care, because I never put him up on a pedestal thinking he was perfect, because there is no one perfect. Well, there was one. And I just listened about him this morning, and he lived over 2,000 years ago. But no one else is perfect. And the day that you start believing that, you'll start having a bigger worldview, that you don't put these people, these political figures on pedestals, because almost all of them violate the same thing that they say that they're for each and every day. And if you have that belief system, what you're going to realize is that the people you work with, that buyer, seller, tenant, landlord that believes different than you, they're really not different. They just believe of political philosophy different, possibly from the moccasins that they wore. And until you get in their moccasins and walk a mile, you'll never know how they came to have their belief system. So I hope this helps you guys. You really got to know about what's going on in the world. So again, the Drudge Report, Fox News, CNN.com, ESPN, just get a grasp of what the big events are in case you meet somebody. And it could be that one thing that you can throw into them to establish that you're kind of like them. They'll end up working with you as a buyer, seller, tenant, landlord. So y'all be safe, and y'all go out and get some today.